Coming to you from the Hudson Media Group studio, this is Talking Politics, and I am New Jersey's premier journalist and top 100 Latino via the Latino Spirit Online magazine, Fernando Uribe. Hope you had a wonderful week. It's great to see the weather getting just a little bit warmer and the days being just a little bit longer. So again, I hope you're all well. There is a lot to discuss, so let's get started. Here's what I'm thinking about right now. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I want to take this time to remind you all that this is a mission that I'm very personal about. And I'm going to stand up for our biological girls. Now, I've discussed this on other episodes, but recent legislation introduced in the New Jersey State Legislature gives me some hope that somehow grown-ass men and women in the legislature believe in standing up for our biological girls, especially when it comes to sports. So let me just unpackage this a little bit. Now, 3 Republican state lawmakers have introduced a bill to ban transgender athletes from participating in girls' sports in the Garden State, an effort that mirrors conservative-promoted cultural battles playing out in state houses all across the country. Now, State Senator Michael Testa, a Republican out in South Jersey, specifically in Cumberland County, introduced the Fairness in Women's Sports Act last week. Now, if passed, it would force students to compete under their biological gender at birth, reversing state rules that accommodate transgender athletes. Now, more than a decade ago, the New Jersey State Interscholastic Athletic Association became the first state athletic body in the country to implement policies governing transgendered athletes, permitting them to participate based on their own gender identity. Now, those rules were strengthened in 2017 when the NJSIAA removed the previous requirement that those students provide a proof of that identity. But State Senator Testa said his proposal is about creating a, quote, level playing field in sports, a claim that's being echoed by GOP legislators stretching all the way out west to Idaho, to South Dakota, all the way down south in Mississippi, who have also embraced similar laws. Now, the state senator went on to say, quote, I think that allowing transgender athletes to compete against genetic females really flies in the face of fairness and in the plain and unambiguous language of Title IX. For all of you maybe not aware, Title IX was passed in 1972, and it's a federal law that protects people from discrimination based on sex and requires equal opportunity by gender in educational activities at institutions receiving federal funds, vis-a-vis colleges and universities. Now, of course, there's going to be some disagreement and uproar from the LGBT community. And Christian Friscarino, the executive director of Garden State Equality, perhaps the state's largest advocacy group for the LGBT movement, strongly opposes the bill, saying it's discriminatory. His quote this week, quote, transgender kids want the opportunity to play sports for the same reason that other kids do, to be a part of a team and to feel like they belong. We shouldn't be discriminating against kids simply because they're transgender. Well, folks, let me just break this down for you even more. And this is where I think it's important that I be real with you because I owe it to you. You're my loyal audience, and I think it's important to sort of talk about this openly and honestly. Now, high school girls, as well as collegiate, amateur, and professional female athletes all around the world and all across this country, especially in sports, are being dominated by biological males. Now, obviously, and what I would say is we have to explore other options and find a solution where young women are not denied their rightful place in the podium. And the problem is this, folks. Too many parents, coaches, and authority figures are silent on this issue. And worse, young women, like many of you out there that have daughters, are being bullied and called, quote, sore losers and transphobic for simply seeking fairness in sports. Folks, it's not being transphobic. Okay, it's not being bigoted or a sore loser. It's very simple. Boys should play with boys and girls should play with girls. Okay? And the problem is that, we're sort of living in this political climate where, listen, I can support the LGBT community, but I don't have to acquiesce to some of the radical notions that they feel is trying to sort of undermine fairness in sports. Okay, let's look at this from just an easy perspective. For any of you that have daughters out there and you drive them to soccer practice, you drive them to basketball practice, you drive them to track and field, or you drive them to bowling, or you drive them to whatever organized sporting event that you can think of, right? Let's say at a elementary or middle school level or even high school level. How would you feel having to sit your daughter down and let's say for whatever reason, okay, your daughter leads your school district or the conference, let's say in that county specifically, in scoring in basketball as a junior. Now she proceeds to her senior year in high school. Maybe she's looking at colleges. Maybe she's hopefully eligible for a scholarship. And what does it say when, the year before, Jim, who's now Judy, for example, decides to play basketball and shatters all of your daughter's records? And perhaps maybe, I don't know, takes a spot on the roster instead of her. And maybe that scholarship that your daughter was eyeing, well, guess what? Maybe it's going to go now to Jim, who's pretending to be Judy. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, how would you like to have that conversation? How would you like to sit down and talk to your daughter and explain to her that somehow this is fair, right? Because all we're hearing, folks, right? And these are the terms that I've coined because it applies. Because now we're living in this sort of political climate that if you speak out about this, then you're a transphobe, or you're a bully, or you're a sore loser, or you're bigoted, or you're a homophobe. Folks, I'm none of those things. But what I'm not going to do here is somehow coddle the social justice clowns, the woke fools, and here's my new one, okay, the compassion mongers that we see online all the time, and the alphabet army. You know what I'm talking about, right? Like the LGBT, ABC, QURS. I mean, it seems like they add a new continent every week. I'm not trying to be funny, but it's the truth. I mean, it sounds like that's what's happening. But now it seems like we have to acquiesce to these groups, because if you don't do that, then you're not socially conscious. Then you know what? Then you're not good-hearted. And folks, this is the problem with a lot of liberals and progressives when it comes to issues like this, right? Oh, you'll see it on social media. You'll see it with liberal journalists. You'll see it with liberal pundits on cable news, right? They seem to sort of just preach to the sky. Oh, well, my heart's in the right place. No, your head's up your ass. That's what it is. And unfortunately, and kudos to State Senator Michael Testa and other legislators in New Jersey that want simple fairness for women, especially biological girls in sports. Now, unfortunately, because Democrats run the legislature, the last thing they want to do is, dare to offend either the LGBT, QURS, whatever, community, or liberals or progressives or the social justice crowd or the woke mob or the compassion mongers, because then we're not socially conscious. Then we're not a caring society. That's nonsense, okay? I just want fairness. I'm a sports fan. I love the purity of sports. But the last thing I need to see is a biological girl, for example, doing everything she can to bust her rear end, to work hard, to train hard, right? To either have incredible stats, to put forth an amazing athletic presentation. And then what does it say when a biological boy now chooses to identify as a girl and breaks all of her records? How is that fair, right? And folks, we're still in March, right? So it's Women's History Month, right? So all we hear on our news feeds, right, on social media is, oh, women empowerment. Oh, we have to sort of be all about women's rights. Well, we're all the liberals and progressives. You know what? If you were really about women's rights, you would be down in Trenton in front of the governor's mansion or in front of the Capitol building in Trenton, okay, bitching and moaning at every legislator saying, you know what? This is an outright slap in the face to our daughters and our girls. But for whatever reason, you don't do that. But again, folks, it's a reminder that when it comes to liberals and progressives, they love to talk out of both sides of their mouth. And this is just a latest example where they say one thing, they're all about women's rights, but you know what? They tend to back causes that say the absolute other. I don't know about you folks, I see right through it. I hope you do too, but I hope this bill gets to at least to the floor of the State Assembly and the State Senate, because it deserves a vote. And more importantly, it deserves consideration, because folks, someone's got to stand up for our girls, okay? It's not liberals. They're not going to stand up for girls and women's rights. They're clearly not doing that when it comes to sports and when it comes to this. And neither are progressives, and neither are, again, the alphabet army, the compassion mongers, the woke fools, and the social justice clowns. Again, they love these causes. But when it comes time to roll up your sleeves and do the work, they'd rather give you lip service than actual physical service. I see right through them. I hope you do too. And that's what I'm thinking about right now. In the latest edition of the 4-time award-winning podcast, Talking to Hudson, which you can listen to live every Wednesday night at 9 p.m. by going to www.blogtalkradio.com/Talking to Hudson, was tri-state entrepreneur and local philanthropist James Barracato. We spoke for over an hour on a plethora of different issues, whether it involved COVID, the township of Weehawken, and much more. And here are some highlights for your consideration. First and foremost, we talked about the importance of the next round of PPP loans going out in the new stimulus package, and as a small business owner himself, how he's been as helpful as possible to other business owners within the community during this very difficult time because of the pandemic. Let's hear what he had to say.
He's a local philanthropist and small business owner. The great James Barracato joins us here today. I'm Talking to Hudson. What's going on, brother?
Hey, Fernando, how you doing? And happy anniversary on 4 years, and thank you for having me.
Oh man, listen, the show wouldn't be possible without you and I sitting down for dinner and brainstorming and coming up with this concept, man. And certainly, I think it's fair to say that 4 years later, it's become an invaluable resource, I think, for Hudson County residents on a daily basis. I have to thank you because, well, thank you, man. I appreciate that. So, James, let's get to that right away. I know that last time we spoke was last year, really during the height of the pandemic. And I know that as a small business owner, you were really concerned about the impact that COVID was going to have on small businesses of any size, but more so one like yours where, you're in the service and hospitality industry, which those took such a hard hit during COVID-19.
Oh, absolutely. They've been devastated. But I mean, we're very lucky in that we're living in a time where there are options to be able to continue to grow a small business or do things. I mean, you have all these different on-demand food apps, right, that you could order from, whether it be Uber Eats or Seamless or Grubhub or DoorDash, which has helped a lot of restaurants. You have a lot of support in the local communities. Hudson County, in general, was able to distribute a lot of grants that were 100% forgivable to various businesses, not just in the food and hospitality, but dry cleaners and laundromats and daycares and all sorts of businesses. So, a lot of people really stepped up to try to help keep small businesses going. And right now there's definitely a light at the end of the tunnel. I mean, with the vaccines coming out, we're hoping there'll be some semblance of normal during the summer, and hopefully by the fall, life will be a little bit closer to how we knew it. I mean, it's never going to quite be the same, but it'll be closer to what it was before all this started, for sure.
Secondly, we talked about the importance of leadership by all of the local mayors in Hudson County. As a Weehawken resident, he talked very glowingly about Weehawken Mayor Richard Turner, who, along with Union City Mayor Brian Stack, are perhaps the hardest working mayors in Hudson County. Along with County Executive Tom DeGees and other mayors and elected leaders within Hudson County, we talked about their role in helping the community during this very difficult time. Let's hear what he had to say about it.
Again, he's going to kill me for saying this on the air, but a shout out once again to the mayor, the Honorable Richard Turner, along with the town council and town administrator Gio Ahmad, sponsors of the podcast, but also they've been supportive since 2019 here on Blog Talk Radio. I mean, listen, my mayor is Brian Stack, and I can't say enough about my mayor, but let me tell you, if there's somebody in the area that works just as hard as Brian Stack, it's Richard Turner. I think that's fair to say.
It's definitely fair to say, and the mayor, I mean, they've done an amazing job in Weehawken. All the members of the administration, public employees, have continued to work hard. Our schools were on a hybrid model where parents could select whether they wanted them to be virtual learning or in school, and that's a great credit to our teachers and the people that run the school district. And Mayor Turner has done an incredible job here. I mean, from doing everything from making sure people had the right PPE to making sure that businesses were supported to distributing food to families that were in need and offering the ability for people to sign up for health care that may have lost their benefits through the Affordable Care Act, and assisting with unemployment claims for residents who were caught in a backlog, or even now they've been going door to door on Park Avenue and in other neighborhoods where people may have an issue logging online to make an appointment for COVID, or there may be a language barrier, and they're hitting all these different households to make sure that people know, and they're signing them right up there at the door and giving them an appointment and telling them come in. And they're not going to stop until they are able to vaccinate every single person who wants a vaccination. And it really is amazing just to see the way that they did it. So it's and it's the same thing in Union City. Mayor Stack's doing the same thing, and he's going to work as hard as he can to protect people and help in any way. And he's down in Trenton as a state senator fighting for renters. I mean, he fought and led the charge for a $100 million rental assistance bill that's hopefully going to prevent some kind of a housing crisis in the state of New Jersey. So, and all the mayors of North Hudson worked together. They were able to form the ability to share vaccines, to make sure that patients were placed properly, to make sure everybody that wants one is going to get one, and they're working collectively with each other. And that's really when you see the benefits of a tight-knit community. Because, I mean, like you said, you could be from Union City, you could be from Weehawken, but we're all from North Hudson. And when you're on Burger Line Avenue, you're on Burger Line. You don't think of what town you're in. It's just one part of the community that's kind of larger than life. That's part of your culture. So it really is amazing. I agree with you entirely as to everything that our elected officials have done, including the county executive. You know, he was a big part of making sure that businesses got their grants and tenants got rental assistance, working with North Hudson Cap Agency. So there's a lot that people, you know, often try to criticize Hudson County with, but really what you saw is how efficient government is from you know, the state legislature to the county to local government here. And I think that they don't get as much credit as they really ever deserve.
No, absolutely.
You know, the state legislature to the county to local government.
It was a very interesting interview, to say the very least, and certainly you can listen to it in its entirety by once again going to www.blogtalkradio.com/Talking the Hudson. James Barracato, along with all of my other exclusive guests this year, are the ones that, hey, I take pride in bringing you every single week on Blog Talk Radio, and I will work hard to bring you even more exclusive guests as the year continues. And now to some local stories for your consideration. And folks, this is probably one of the few times you'll ever see some comic relief on this program, but I just had to talk about this. I saw it on the news feed, and I have to tell you, I got such a huge chuckle out of it because I'm a Hudson County resident, a lifer, and when I saw this, I was like, it's just amazing. So let me just unpackage this a little bit, but a shout out to John Highness with the Hudson County View for his report on this story. But apparently a Jersey City man was arrested for using a pool stick as a weapon at a Secaucus strip bar last week, according to Police Chief Dennis Miller. Now, let me just give you some facts here, and I'll do my best without laughing. But Medardo Hernandez Lopez of Jersey City was charged with aggravated assault and possession of a weapon for unlawful purpose. Now, he was arrested at around 8:20 p.m. on March 16th in connection to a fight at AJ's Go-Go nightclub and sports bar located at 201 Secaucus Road that took place on March the 14th. Now, the police chief added that it was unclear why the fight broke out and that Hernandez Lopez had used a pool stick as a weapon. Now, folks, let me just be real here. I had no idea that AJ's was still open. You know, for anyone that's lived in Hudson County his entire life, and as you get older, obviously you learn about establishments like this. Now, they've quickly disappeared over the years. I think many mayors across Hudson County, whether it be Union City with Mayor Brian Stack, or in Weehawken, down by the Hoboken border with Mayor Richard Turner, or even, you know, maybe parts of Jersey City with Mayor Fulop, and even before that with Mayor Jerry Healy. You know, go-go bars have sort of been a thing of the past. And you know, it's not something that I prefer to frequent. It's, you know, to be very honest, I think it's a waste of time and money to go to these establishments. And again, you know, kudos to the hardworking women that shake their moneymaker every week, right? And especially during this pandemic, obviously you have to do what you can to make ends meet financially. But when I read this story, the first thing that came to my mind was, wow, like, I can't believe that AJ's is still open in Secaucus. Now, again, for any of you that have been aware of it, you know, it's sort of like in those back roads, right? If you're near Secaucus Road and let's say you're going towards Jersey City, it's not, you know, it's an establishment you can't miss. It's probably one of the more iconic, you know, places in Hudson County. But folks, it sort of, you know, begs the question of, you know, why are these incidents still taking place in establishments like this? Now, again, for all intents and purposes, during the pandemic, I thought establishments like AJ's and other adult-oriented, you know, venues were closed permanently because of what's going on with COVID. And obviously, I think we all know that, you know, we know what happens at strip bars, okay? We all know the proximity, right, of dancers and patrons and everything else, and, you know, the passage of currency and whether or not that's sanitary or where the currency is being placed. I mean, those are things that, you know, again, this is a PG-rated program. But the bottom line is that, you know, it sort of begs the question of why these things are still taking place. And not because I'm urging, you know, municipalities to shut down, you know, strip clubs. I mean, again, they're a viable business like anywhere else. But it sort of begs the bigger question exactly, why are grown men still having brawls inside of a strip club, you know, much less somewhere like AJ's, which by and large, again, has had a pretty good reputation for decades, right, in Hudson County. Of course, you know, when we think about other sort of iconic venues in New Jersey, we think of Satin Dolls on Route 17, right? If you remember, for any of us that were fans of The Sopranos during the late 90s, early 2000s, you remember that was the club called Bada Bing's, right, during The Sopranos. And obviously, it's still an iconic venue on Route 17. Well, I think you can make the case that AJ's in Secaucus still carries that notoriety. Now, how much longer it'll be open and whether or not this incident might be a black eye on the establishment and whether or not Mayor Michael Gannelli in Secaucus might take some initiative to shut it down remains to be seen. But again, folks, it's, when you think about the pandemic, you think about people acting up and acting crazy. Does this really surprise you? It really shouldn't. But you know what? It's AJ's and anything can happen in Secaucus. And now let's move to Jersey City to a story that absolutely warms my heart. And a shout out to Daniel Ulua with the Hudson County Review for his report on this story. Now, it's being reported that the Jersey City Planning Board has unanimously moved forward with plans for a new county courthouse. Now, the Jersey City Planning Board voted unanimously 9-0 and moved forward with plans for the new county courthouse deemed the Frank J. Guarini Justice Complex at a recent meeting. Now, architect David Hodge explained that the building would be 400,000 square feet with 24 courtrooms for civil, family, and criminal court. Sitting on 4 acres, the new courthouse will be 98 feet high compared to the William J. Brennan Courthouse, which is currently 142 feet high. Now, the building will be 5 stories tall and 6 levels of garage parking will be located within the Journal Square redevelopment zone. Hodge also explained that the streets around the new site have to be changed. For example, they'll be extending Central Avenue to prepare the site for construction. Now, while most of the garage parking will be reserved for 40 spaces in the parking garage, and they'll be reserved for select chosen jurors, while all visitors and others must find street parking. Now, folks, as someone who worked at the county courthouse at 595 Newark Avenue some years ago, once again, it warms my heart to see that this asbestos-filled, cesspool of a building is finally being replaced. And for any of you that have gone there for jury duty, or perhaps unfortunately for a criminal complaint or a family court matter or a civil court matter, you know how beaten down that building is. And, as someone who takes a lot of pride in having worked in our criminal justice system many moons ago, all right, for many of you that aren't aware, I was privileged to be working in the judiciary as a probation officer from 1998 up until 2004. And during my 6 years at 595 Newark Avenue, I met a lot of great people, some who have passed, unfortunately. And I had the pleasure, again, of working with an enormous amount of just amazing human beings. I also work with some pretty crappy human beings as well. But nevertheless, though, it's so reassuring to see that the current employees there will be able to have a new building, hopefully established in the next few years. And whether it's, again, brand new courtrooms, new technology, even a new cafeteria. Folks, if you've ever gone to 595 Newark Avenue, that cafeteria is just an absolute dump. I mean, I always made sure to bring my own lunch. And even if I went there for jury duty, which I don't really enjoy going to too often, you know what? I made a point to even bring something in my book bag because that cafeteria, God bless people who work there because I know them, but not exactly the most sanitary place to go to. So, kudos to the city of Jersey City and to Hudson County overall for a new court building coming in the next few years. Hopefully they'll build it as soon as possible and get rid of 595 Newark Avenue and just, level it and, make it rubble like it rightfully deserves. And now to our last story, which encompasses the 31st Legislative District, consisting of the city of Bayonne and the south side of Jersey City. And once again, a shout out to John Hines with the Hudson County Review for his report on this story. And it's being alleged that State Assemblyman, again, out of the 31st Legislative District, Nick Ciarvallotti, is asking supporters to sign an online petition for his potential showdown with William Sampson. Now, the incumbent Assemblyman sent out an email blast this week asking supporters to sign an online petition for nomination, once again, as a potential showdown with the backed candidate by Bayonne Mayor Jimmy Davis, obviously is coming up for primary day in June against William Sampson IV. Now, according to the Assemblyman, he wanted to say this week, it is an honor to represent Bayonne and Jersey City and Trenton. Moving New Jersey and Hudson County forward as your 31st Legislative District Assemblyman is a privilege. I ran for public office not because I needed a job, but because a job needed to be done. He's also the New Jersey Assembly Majority Whip. He also went on to say, it would be an honor to continue representing the 31st Legislative District, but I can't do that without you. Will you support me by signing my petition to get my name on this year's primary election ballot? Now, Chair Velati is a three-term assemblyman first elected in 2015. Now, Chair Velati had been seen as one of the mayor's closest political allies until suddenly he just wasn't. Now, despite hearing from state leaders such as Governor Phil Murphy, Assembly Speaker Craig Coughlin out of the 19th Legislative District, the senior United States Senator Bob Menendez, as well as junior U.S. Senator Cory Booker, and lastly, State Committee Chair John Curry, apparently Bayonne Mayor Jimmy Davis wasn't having it, and he's not going to reverse course. As recently as late February, after telling Nick via text message that he would not be having his support for the upcoming June 8th primary. Now, the mayor of the peninsula city of Bayonne has not publicly disclosed why he had a falling out with Assemblyman Chair Velati and what's sort of consists of. But about 2 weeks ago, he named William Sampson, who's a longshoreman and also a crane operator, as his preferred candidate in the state assembly in the 31st Legislative District. Now, Sampson will have the backing of the HCDO, though Chair Velati has been fundraising throughout the year for the HCDO and will be able to tout that along with his very extensive legislative record in Trenton. Now, furthermore, many media outlets throughout the county and even throughout the state of New Jersey recently reported that Sampson had never even voted in a Democratic primary, though he later defended himself by saying that by missing elections, he could help motivate other young voters who have not yet voted. Now, Chair Velati unsuccessfully ran off the line for the 31st Legislative District Assembly seat in 2007 before easily winning the backing of the HCDO and subsequently winning in 2015, 2017, and 2019. Now, anyone seeking to run in the June 8th primary has to submit 100 valid petitions of nomination to the Hudson County Clerk's Office by 4 p.m. on April 5th. I don't know, folks, that seems like a tall order for Assemblyman Chair Velati with such few weeks remaining. But you know what? If anyone can do it, and a guy that still has some pretty good political capital in Hudson County and statewide, if anyone can, it's Nicholas Chair Velati. I'll keep you posted in the weeks and months ahead here on the program as, again, that deadline is soon approaching, and we'll see whether or not the incumbent assemblyman obviously will have to run off the line, and subsequently whether or not he can win the Democratic nomination for the State Assembly in the 31st Legislative District. And that's our show for this week. To check out all the excellent programming brought to you by the leader in independent media in Hudson County, the Hudson Media Group, please go to their websites, www.hmgtvshows.com and www.livestream.com/HMGTV. Don't forget to like the Hudson Media Group on Facebook and follow them, of course, on Instagram and Twitter. And live every Wednesday night, you can check out the 4-time award-winning podcast, Talking the Hudson, by going to www.blogtalkradio.com/Talking the Hudson. Episodes are available anywhere and anytime from any PC, Mac, smartphone, or tablet. So download them and listen to them when you can, and I'd love to hear your feedback on them. And always remember, ladies and gentlemen, if it's unbiased, unfiltered, and unafraid, you know it's always talking politics, right here with the Hudson Media Group. I'm New Jersey's premier journalist and top 100 Latino via the Latino Spirit, Fernando Uribe, saying so long and thank you so much for watching.
Don't forget to catch Fernando's podcast at blogtalkradio.com/talkonthehudson. New episodes available every Wednesday night at 9 p.m.